Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the webinar today. Move over Telecomplexities, Scaling Your UCaaS and CCaaS Globally. My name is Hannah Clendenin, and I manage our virtual events here at Bandwidth, and I'll be your moderator today. I just have a few housekeeping items before we begin. All of your lines are muted to prevent any background noise, so all of your questions will need to be entered into the Q&A box on your control panel. Don't hesitate to ask anything you may want to know, but we'll reserve all of your questions for the end of our session today. You'll also receive a recording link to today's webinar via email in the next few days, so be on the lookout for that. We also have with us two speakers that I'd like to quickly introduce. We're excited to have Christopher Rolls and Emma Bradley with us here for Bandwidth. Christopher has over 25 years of experience and is a veteran of the telecom industry. He currently leads the international product team at Bandwidth, covering the international portfolio, which includes inbound voice, outbound termination, and emergency services and web reporting. And we also have with us Emma Bradley, who's the Director of Product Management in Research and Development. And as director, her mission is to engage with customers and leverage customer-informed metrics to deliver analytics products that deliver value. She's a skilled leader in product strategy, development, and agile leadership. So we're excited to have her with us today as well. And obviously, our presenters have an incredible amount of experience. So if there's anything that I missed that either of you would like to add, please do so. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Emma to get us started.
Welcome. Thanks for being here today. I wanted to briefly go over what we are going to talk about in today's webinar. So we are going to address navigating the evolving regulations, scaling with operational efficiencies, delivering exceptional customer experiences globally with data, and finding an incredible partner. So we know that your world is complex. We understand that everything that you're juggling is very complex. It's a pain point for enterprises to have multiple providers across various countries, multiple relationships, and invoices. Manual processes make it difficult to scale. And there are ever-changing regulations across every country. And you don't always have the data that you need to be able to make proactive decisions and provide the best customer experience.
Thanks, Emma. It is very difficult to know where to start. It's very complex, as we say. So hopefully in this session, we're going to give some information so that will help you address some of those complexities, trying to simplify it and break it down a little bit, just make it a little bit easier for you to digest. And the first step should always be the regulations in a country. These regulations are going to determine how you operate in any country. Unfortunately, these regulations are not static. They're continually evolving, and it's important that you have sight of this. And it's really important as well that you seek appropriate legal advice from the relevant experts in the countries.
There are 3 stages of regulatory acceptance that we want to talk with you about today. That first stage is typically the denial stage. So ignoring it and assuming that nothing will happen. This can burn you in the end. So putting your head in the sand is not a strategy for scale. The second stage is you may, as you're launching in new markets, once you find out what's involved, panic sort of ensues, and you contemplate giving up because there's so much that you need to consider. And then the third stage is finally acceptance. Acceptance that regulations are important and are required for a lot of the countries you wish to expand into. It's important for you to do your own due diligence on legal and regulatory requirements for all the countries you're growing into. We're here to offer support, but we can't provide specific legal advice.
Yeah, that's good for that. Emma. I mean, it's really important as well, not to assume that all countries are equal in terms of consensus telecoms regulations. This is definitely not the case at all. We do see some similarities between countries within a region, and that's definitely something we see. But be very careful because they're not identical. So countries next to each other could be implementing rules in very different ways. That would be great if all the countries had the same regulations and implemented in the same way, but that's absolutely not the case. So what I want to do now is just look at a couple of countries in terms of changes they've either implemented very recently or are about to this year. And the first one is in France. So the French regulator, ARCEP, have been very active over the last couple of years. There's two really significant changes they're making in 2023. The first one's already happened. This happened in January 1st, whereas they've stopped the sub-allocation of numbers to resellers. So essentially what that means is resellers now have to go and they have to go and receive their own allocation of numbers from the regulator. Those numbers then have to be hosted on an operator's network. So it's quite a big change in terms of how it used to work versus how it works today. The next change is happening in July this year, towards the end of July. And the French regulators implementing what's called the MAN program. If you're familiar with Stir Shaken in the US, then this is similar, but it's not the same. The end results are very similar in terms of signing calls, so protecting consumers around spoofing and things like that. However, the way it's being implemented is not the same as it is in the US. The next country I want to touch on is the UK. The UK is making a change in how carriers handle fake caller IDs. And again, this is to protect customers from spoofing. And this is quite a common theme that we're seeing in lots of countries now in various parts of the world. Spoofing has become such a problem that most of these countries are implementing some rules or some mechanisms, again, to protect consumers and to prevent this kind of fraudulent traffic. So take the time to understand where you are in the journey. Hopefully you're not with your head in the sand in denial, and you're towards the end and you are recognizing that regulations are important. Definitely get expert legal advice specific to the countries you're interested in. And bandwidths, again, can't provide that advice. Understand that each country is going to implement regulations in very different ways. Don't make assumptions that one country is going to be the same as another country, or that your home country is going to be implemented the same way in different countries. So that's definitely something to look out for. And it is complex. You know, we recognize that. So choosing the right partner really is key. So I just want to switch gears a little now. And just imagine now you've started on your journey from a globalization perspective. What are the things you can do to really aid your growth along that path? Well, it's very common when going into a new market that everything is a manual process. You know, without having a revenue stream in a particular country, you don't know if it's going to be a success. You don't want to invest too much at the start. And that's perfectly fine. Manual fashion is really what most people will start to do. And it works, and your manual works, but only up to a point. If you start thinking about kind of ballpark numbers, if say a rep can process a number port in about 15 minutes, that's 4 an hour or 32 in a day. But that's not the reality, because, you know, we're human, we need breaks, we need food, we take calls. So let's say it's 20 a day. So now you've got a threshold of the number of orders that can be processed in a day in a manual fashion. And complex orders will take longer as well. So this manual process greatly limits your scale and velocity in that new market. So you can only scale as fast as the amount of hands that you've got. If you can't continue to hire more people, it's very costly, it's very time consuming. Especially you want to keep growing, you want to go to more markets, you can't just add people all the time. It becomes a breaking point and a barrier for long-term growth. Stops you, prevents you from achieving your goals.
So manual tasks are not limited to our industry. Generally speaking, 51%, 51% of workers have said that they spend around 10 hours a week on repetitive tasks. Instead of solving scaling needs with people for your business, think about solutions that can solve for these types of repetitive tasks, that 10 hours a week per person. In addition to your own solutions, for scaling, you might want to think about how your customers are also looking to optimize and the opportunity this provides. According to Gartner, 80% of respondents consider automation as a top tactic to achieve cost automation.
So automation really is the key to growth and scale. So look for a provider that either has that capability today or has it on their roadmap for the future. So let's just look at some of the advantages of automation. First one really is unlocking the potential of your workforce. So we talked about manual tasks and repetitive tasks. Your investment in human talent pays off, and you can put that effort towards more strategic functions or more tasks that are more driven against business growth. Second point really is, don't make humans your barrier to scale. Manually entering data definitely puts a fixed limit on how many orders can be submitted, processed. So integrating provisioning workflows into your platform increases that scaling velocity. You want to say goodbye to those operational swivel chairs. It's not only inefficient, but it greatly increases the potential for human error in the data entry process. So with automation, that brings the ability to kind of remove that from your operations. And then the last point really, this kind of really the whole point of everything. We're really looking to enhance the customer experience. Everything we do is focused on that. Integrating APIs directly into your portal for customers to input order data greatly reduces time. And then keeping customers engaged in that easy and seamless process to onboard is key. Try and make the kind of ordering process and customer experience like the online experience. Everyone's really familiar with how to purchase online, put things in baskets. It's kind of like, it's almost like natural behavior now in the sense of how we order things online. So try and kind of replicate that as much as possible.
So now that we've talked about the needs for automation to scale and how to navigate evolving regulations within the market, let's talk about how you can leverage data to be able to make the right decisions and deliver the best customer experience. As you grow globally, customer experience becomes a major way for you to find your brand. So we've talked a little bit about that, but thinking about what type of customer experience you want to provide and how important that is to your business. How fast do you want your customers to be served? Did the customer's expectation meet the experience that you're providing? Why that's important is that what we found is importance of trust as a part of your experience, as well as the security protocols that protect it, are critical everywhere you operate. 74% of customers expect more from brands, not only in their products or their services, but also how they treat their customers. 83% of consumers say they'll not do business with brands that they don't trust. So we're seeing more and more in the industry evidence that suggests that not only are the way that you treat your customers critically important, if they don't trust you, they're not willing to do business with you. So what does this mean for your business? We can relate as consumers to situations where you make a call to your internet provider, to a bank, and it does not go as you expected. You get a busy signal, your call doesn't go through, the call line is choppy, you can't hear what other people are saying, or you've been on hold for a really long time and the call just fails. These are relatable experiences, and these are the types of experiences that can have negative impacts on your customer. Insights allows you to proactively address before these arise. So let's dig into those insights. Call failure. So one aspect the customers are looking at is when and why calls might be failing. Calls failing can have a huge impact on that experience for your customer. They're not expecting it to happen. They're expecting to be able to make a call. So your ability to have visibility to when and why calls are failing, what's the specific error that's taking place, and be able to investigate how to address that and prevent it in the future. The next thing is for your customers, ensuring their calls go through can be key to a positive experience. Visibility to capacity and the ability to manage this capacity can help you identify when your capacity needs to be increased so that you can handle more ongoing calls. This can also help you prevent calls from being blocked and give you visibility to your typical usage within a region or a geographic area to better manage that capacity long term, so that as you are scaling, you're ensuring that you have the right capacity where you need it. Another area that we see often impacts customer experience is problematic call quality. So when calls are happening, you're not always on the line. You can't always see exactly and experience exactly what your customers are experiencing. So having visibility to call quality or audio quality metrics helps you monitor this experience. You can identify when audio experience is less than ideal and act on these issues. Things like mean opinion score or MOS, the percentage of packet loss that your calls are experiencing, jitter or any latency can offer this data, can be data that offer you more insight into your customer experience related to the calls and allow you to investigate those. The last area where we see opportunity to improve customer experience with most of our customers is there was a 2022 survey that found 2 out of 3 tech, media, or telecom businesses experience some type of fraud. So the ability to monitor spending and identify anomalies is one way to identify these suspicious and potentially fraudulent calls. Addressing potential fraudulent activity can help you address unexpected spending, not only for your business, but also your customers. And I know that for me personally, when I can manage unexpected spending, it's always a positive. So we know that for our customers, that is a value add as well.
Thanks, Emma. So, not all providers will be able to help you with things we've talked about today. We've compiled a list of questions for you to be able to take to your providers, to be able to really drill into the specific areas that we've covered and that are important as well when choosing a provider. These questions really around 3 key areas: compliance, network, and operational efficiency. We believe with this information, you'll be empowered to the right conversations to either get started on your journey or to bring efficiencies to your business if you're already on that path. To get this list of mission critical questions, you can scan the code at the end or after the webinar. We'll be sending out a deck, and we also send out the document as well with those questions. So lastly, I just want to touch upon some of the capabilities we have here at Bandwidth. We have a full suite of APIs, including the management, ordering, porting numbers. We have APIs for messaging, emergency calling, and obviously we have APIs for voice and video as well. But these are just some of the ways we're helping our customers automate and provide efficiencies today.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about what we offer at Bandwidth in terms of insights to the data for your services. We mentioned the value of data in order to provide a really great customer experience and also help you scale. So what we have today here at Bandwidth, you have the ability to monitor your capacity, usage, and spend. You can also have alerts with custom thresholds and frequencies to notify you when a particular spend or capacity or usage limit has been reached or is near being exceeded. We also have the ability for you to investigate your call failures and quality metrics for particular calls. And we are rolling out the ability to proactively monitor outlier spend on your account so that you can identify potentially suspicious calls.
Thanks for that. Back to you, Hannah.
Awesome. Thank you both. We'll move into a time of questions. So again, like I mentioned earlier, there's a Q&A box on the control panel where you can enter in your questions. So feel free to do so now as we're going through those. The first question that I have for you both is, how can I find out more information about country regulations?
Yeah, it's a good question, Hannah. I think the first thing to do, as I mentioned this, is to seek expert legal advice, specific to the countries that you're interested in and specific to your use case as well. Regulations can be different. Oh, sorry, regulations are different. Regulations can impact different use cases differently. And then, so if it's CCaaS versus UCaaS, could be some differences in how you implement your service based on the regulations. But definitely, first step, speak to the experts, legal team in the relevant country that you're looking at.
That's great. Thanks, Chris. We had a question come in. Will Bandwidth have spend caps on international calls?
I can take that one. So we don't have specific spend caps as a company. We don't regulate that. But what we can do is enable customers to set those caps themselves. That way, that way we give you the flexibility because not all customers have the exact same use cases. They may be looking to enter into different countries, and so we don't want to constrain our customers around that. We want to empower them to be able to set those limits.
That's great. So it's able to be tailored to their needs.
Yeah.
Do they, one kind of follow-up question to that, would they set their cap out on the Bandwidth system, or is that handled differently?
They can set that within the system. So there's a threshold amount that you can set for your alert, and that would be how you do it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Another question that we had was, I want to expand globally. What are my first steps in that process?
I think the first steps are to really focus in on the countries. My experience, I would say, try not to do too many countries at once. Focus in on the countries that are most important, and then really hone in on those regulations in that country. And of course, you can speak to Bandwidth. We can provide support in terms of what we do in those countries. Maybe we could talk about what some of our customers do in those countries as well. But yeah, really focusing on the countries and the regulations. Yeah, and I would not try and do too many at once. Just do the most important ones first.
That's great. Thanks, Chris. All right, another one that we had. Once I have the insights data, what is the best way to share this information with my customers?
So there's a couple different ways that you can share this information. There are some consumer sort of regulations that you want to be aware of when you're sharing information. So taking into consideration those and being aware of those is always important. But we have the ability to, you can download this information from the portal. We also have APIs that can allow you to pull the data into your own system. And then you can go about sharing that information with your customers. Depending on how you assign your customers, we have, a handful of customers where they know the phone numbers that are associated with their customers. We also have ways for you to filter the data based on that information, and that way you can specifically isolate particular data for your customers.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Emma. Another question, with all the different options to automate, where is kind of the best starting place?
Yeah, that's a good question again. I think I would focus in on what are the tasks that are spending them that your team's spending the most time in manually working on. There's definitely direct cost saving. So if you automate the manual parts of your business, there's definitely direct cost saving. We see a lot of customers definitely automating provisioning workflows. That's a big thing our customers do. So logically, that's a good place to start as well. It's right at the beginning of that customer journey, isn't it? So yeah, wherever the most manual work is being done, focus there. But logically, the very start of the provisioning workflows thing makes sense as well.
That makes sense. Thanks, Chris. Awesome. Well, thank you all for your questions. If there's any that we didn't get to today, we can follow up with you after the webinar. And if you'd like to chat additionally one-on-one, you're welcome to reach out to us at webinars@north.com. We will follow up with you. But I did want to just thank everyone for joining us today and taking some time to hear the information that we had to share with Emma and Chris. And just wanted to thank our speakers. Thank you, Emma and Chris, for being with us today. We really appreciate it. And we hope that this was beneficial to you and was informative. And hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.